We're learning the Sikha. We're learning the Sikha on Parsha Shemos and Chav Dalet Teves, Chelek Tezayin. Before we begin, we just want to offer tefillah to the Eibishter that our learning should be a schus le'ilu nishmas Rav Yosef Yitzchak ben Meir, a schus for all those who were taken hostage. They should be returned to their homes, healthy in body and in mind and in spirit. A tefillah that all those that were wounded should have a refuah shlema. A tefillah that there should be shalom already. There should be shalom in Israel. There should be shalom all over the world. And the Eibusher should take us out of this deep, dark, bitter golus. We're also delighted to share in the Simchas. Chayesara Merazav had a granddaughter born to her son Levi and daughter-in-law Chani Merazav, Mazel Tov. Fega Rachel Galam, her son and daughter-in-law had a baby girl named Talia Chana, Mazel Tov. And Joni Tansky's daughter, Shoshana Leah Polter, turned 50. Now, if you do the math very, very quickly, that makes Joni 46, exactly. So hopefully we always only have simchas to share. Today is Chav Teves. It is the Yom Hilula of the Rambam. So that's another thing that we should note. I'm also going to prophylactically excuse myself for having to bolt immediately after the class is over because I have a funeral I must attend, and I hope that everybody will remain to Farbring because it's just such a really, really beautiful sikha. Aleph, Shemos Chavdal Teves Chelek Tezayin Seif Aleph. Aidis Histalkus Rabbeinu Hazaken. Regarding the histalkos, the leaf taking from this world of the Alter Rebbe, which is coming up, Chavdalet Teves, Kosav Choik Admor Hatzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek described everything surrounding the histalkos. La'achar shehiske bekitzer hal tiltulim she'avar Rabbeinu Hazaken. After the Tzemach Tzedek describes succinctly about the difficult wanderings that the Alter Rebbe had to endure, bivrichasai mipnei hatzarfatim, when he was running away from the French, ad higi l'kfar Piena, until he and his entourage arrived to the village or the hamlet called Piena. And the Rebbe tells us where we could look to see the whole description. And there, the Tzemach Tzedek writes, Asher b'matzei Shabbos kodesh d'Shmos, that it was on Matzei Shabbos of Parsha Shmos, that which fell out on Chof Gimel, the 23rd day of the month of Teves, or Lechav Dalet Teves, on the eve of the 24th of Teves, Kechatzos Shah Yud Aleph, about 11:30, Nishba Aron HaKodesh Ma'or Yisrael Mashiach Hashem v'chulei. The holy ark was taken away, the luminary of Israel, the anointed one. Those are the terms that the Tzemach Tzedek used to describe his grandfather, the Alter Rebbe. Yedua, it's known. Shalachol Moyedei Hashana, v'yishloimar shal derech zeh gam limei tzadikim, that regarding all the holidays, and in like fashion we might say that this is true about all the significant days, the special days that are connected to tzaddikim. And therefore, if this is true about the special days, for sure this includes the birthdays and the Yimei Hilula, the days that mark their passing, the yahrzeits. We know Yeshna Shaychus L'Teichen HaParsha B'Ter Shekorim Ba'is Man. The Rebbe teaches us constantly that there must be a connection between these special days and the parsha that is read in confluence to that Yom Tiv or that specific day. And the Rebbe always quotes this, the Shalah taught this. And we also are taught this based on the teaching, the aphorism of the Baal Hilula himself, the Alter Rebbe, Rabbeinu Hazaken, Sheyesh lichyos im hazman. The Alter Rebbe taught that we have to live with the times, and the times in Parshas HaShavua, with the Parsha Shavua. So if we apply this rule, if we apply this axiomatic idea that special days are very closely correlated with the Parsha, so we have to look in our own Parsha. Hagam she'estalkos Rabbeinu Hazaken ha'isa or l'chavdala Teves asher chal b'yom aleph the Parshas Va'era, that although the Alter Rebbe's leave taking from this world was actually on the eve of Chavdala Teves, which fell out on a Sunday and the first day of Parshas Va'era, hine mizeh sheloi histapik at Tzemach Tzedek rak b'haskoras hazman de'or l'chavdala Teves. But from the fact that the Tzemach Tzedek did not content himself, I'm not finding the right words. If somebody has it, please help me. But the Tzemach Tzedek was not content in mentioning that it was or l'chavdala Teves. And he wasn't content with just saying that it was a Matzei Shabbos Kodesh. But additionally, he added that this was on the Matzei Shabbos of Shemos, v'yasera mizu, and even more than this, Gimel Teves. And then on top of that, he adds that Shabbos was Chav Gimel Teves. So move on, it's understood. So from all of this, we have to infer that there was a very profound connection between the Stalkus of the Alter Rebbe and Parsha Shmos. That the Tzemach Tzedek underscores this in numerous ways, that the Stalkos has to do with Parsha Shmos. And before we move on, please look to footnote 8. Just really Meirdik Aisius here. The Rebbe says, V'yishleimer tam ha'yisafa. And we might say, as another reason for why the Tzemach Tzedek added these seemingly extra details, Ubahaktim Tmiya, and we'll understand the significance by prefacing with a question. And the question is, Hare l'chayra, hare zahadgasha l'griyusa. Seemingly, by adding that this was a Matzei Shabbos Kodesh, which is not altogether necessary at all, it would seem that this underscores something negative rather than positive. Why? Al pi Maimer Azal, Ksuvos, according to what our Chachamim taught us in Masechet Ksuvos, Meis be'erev Shabbos, simin yafaloi. B'matzei Shabbos, simin raloi. The Gemara says that if you pass on erev Shabbos, this is a good sign. If you pass on Matzei Shabbos, it's a negative sign. So why would the Tzemach Tzedek underscore that the Alter Rebbe passed on Matzei Shabbos Kodesh? Achadiuk bazeh hu. But by underscoring this, the Tzemach Tzedek wants to teach us Be'erev Shabbos simin yafeloi. When a person passes on Erev Shabbos, it's a good sign for him. In other words, for him, it's a good thing. Uketaperish Rashi, sheikones limnucha miyad. Maybe it's sheyichnas limnucha miyad. Rashi explains that why is this a simin taiva? Because the person goes directly into minucha, into rest, into Gan Eden, whatever that means. Avol avort soim marisa shel nasi Yisrael. So, but if you're talking about the sheep of the flock of a leader in Yisrael and a Rebbe who's worried about his people, hare adarabah. Then, on the contrary, mikevan shebe'es ptiras sadik elyon v'chulei hu es ratzanem esgalo mer b'fchinas gilui milmayla lamata. Because when a tzaddik passes away, it's a very auspicious time, and it is during this time that there is revealed and there is illuminated a special light and a special revelation from above that comes down into this world, that saturates this world. Shemeir chesed Hashem me'olam ad olam al yureyav u'poyel Yeshua's bekerev ha'aretz. And this, the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, that at that time of Istalkos of a tzaddik, the the chasadim of Hashem, the kindness of Hashem, irradiates this world from one end to the other on those that fear Hashem, and effectuates all kinds of salvations for the people in the land. Lachain, therefore, dafka b'matzei Shabbos shematchila ha'avoda d'yemais hachol. So then it is so. It seems so right that dafka matzei Shabbos, when you begin to step back into the world, b'kerev ha'aretz, you have to leave the cocoon, you have to leave the island in time called Shabbos, and you have to go back into the world, b'kerev ha'aretz, skukim b'yoser lahashpa v'gilei. So that's when we in this world need this effluence more than ever. V'lachein, and therefore, Nisiyei Yisrael, when you're talking about the leaders of Bnei Yisrael, the Rabbeim, shebeikar choshvim lo al dvar aliyas shelahem. In the main, they don't think about what would be good for their spiritual elevation. Ki im doyagim al matzavam shel Bnei Yisrael. But rather, they worry about Bnei Yisrael and our situation here. Ubifrat b'maisi Shabbos, and especially on Matzah Shabbos, eskukim l'psamim b'nei azivas haneshama yisera. And we are especially vulnerable on Matzah Shabbos Kodesh because we see this, that we need psamim, we need to revive ourselves because the neshama yisera leaves us. And what else do we do? Ulam miras al tira avdi Yaakov. And we have a minhag that we console ourselves and we say, do not fear my servant Yaakov, because there could be anxiety and fear about stepping back into this world. So the Rabbeim, who their whole life is about worrying about their flock, so when they're nostalgic from this world, they also don't do it in a way that leaves behind their flock. That's what they're worried about. They opt more. It's better for them that when they leave, it should be done in a way that is best for their flock, rather than worrying about their own celestial heights and elevation and what might be good for them. So it's very, very poignant and so beautiful, adding another layer to what the Tzemach Tzedek underscores about Matzei Shabbos Kodesh. Now we're going back into the Sikha.
The Rebbe also passed away Matzei Shabbos.
Yeah. The last paragraph of Sif Aleph, Ubefrat, and especially Shezman Istalkos Hamiduya Kaya Kaloshon Tzemach Tzedek Sham Kechatzos Shah Yud Aleph. And especially the Alter Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, it was very specific and writes that it was 11:30. Ukiyadua, and as it's known, Hashayis de Matzei Shabbos Kodesh Koidem Chatzais Halayla Yesh Lahem Shaychus LeShabbos B'Negei L'Kama Din V'Inyonim. And as is known, that the hours of Matzei Shabbos Kodesh before Chatzais have a very special connection to Shabbos, and it expresses itself in certain halachas. And I'm of a certain vintage. I remember a whole discussion about if we have a program in school on Matzei Shabbos, what are we allowed to wear and what kind of clothes do we have to wear, because it's Matzei Shabbos, you have to be dressed in a certain way. So from all of this, it's clear that there is a very specific connection between the stalkos of the Alter Rebbe and Parsha Shmos. Seif Beis. Toichin Parsha Shmos hu. So what's the content? What's the content of Parsha Shmos? It's Golus v'Shibud Mitzrayim. It's about the exile and the servitude in Egypt. HaParshias HaKoidmos, the Parsha Shmos, Parshas Vayigash, Parshas Vayechi, Oiskos Bizman Shelifnei Shibud Mitzrayim. Ach Ahiridel Mitzrayim. The last two Parshas that we did involve themselves with being in Mitzrayim. It was after the Jews went down to Mitzrayim, but it was before they were engaged in the servitude to Mitzrayim. Okemai Merazal, and like our Chachamim taught us, Kol Zman Shehaya Echad Mehem Kayem Chulei Lo Yishibdu HaMitzrim BeYisrael. As long as one of the children of Yaakov Avinu that came down to Mitzrayim were alive, the Mitzrayim were not able to subjugate Bnei Yisrael. Le'idach, on the contrary, I'm sorry, Ule'idach, and on the other hand, on the other end, the Parshas La'achar Parsha Shmos, and in the Parshas that follow Shmos, Parshas Ve'era, Parshas Boi, Hagam Shagam Bahen Medubar Oides Tkufas Hashiba Shel Yisrael b'Mitzrayim, although that also speaks about the era of the servitude of Bnei Yisrael in Mitzrayim. However, Hine beParshas Ve'era Nirim Kvar Hasimonim LaHaskalas HaGeula. But in Parshas Ve'era, you can already discern the beginning of the Geula, the beginning of the redemption. Ha'isais v'hamaisim shehira Kadosh Baruch Hu, the signs, the wonders that Hashem showed the Egyptians, v'hamaka shehivi al Mitzrayim, and the plagues that were brought upon the Egyptians, v'af hashibud gufa nasa kal yoser us, and the very servitude also became lessened. It was less intense. V'yaseir mizu amru Chazal, and even more, the Gemara teaches sheberosh Hashana batla avoda me'avasenu b'Mitzrayim. That we left Mitzrayim only on Yudalad Nisan, but already 6 months before that, in Rosh Hashanah, it was already in the celestial heights. The servitude of our ancestors in Mitzrayim was already negated. Balachas kama v'kama Parshas Boi, and if this is true about Parshas Ve'era, how much more so in Parshas Boi? Sheba mesuper kfar edus hageula b'poel, and in Boi we already have the actual leaf taking from Mitzrayim. Masha Ein came Parshas Shmos. So, in contradistinction to Parshas that came before and the Parshas that come after, Parshas Shmos stands out because Kol Teichna Einai Ella Protim Begoidel Bekoshi Hashibud, because the entire content of this parsha is all about the magnitude and the severity of the servitude. Ad lemisupar b'seif parsha, until what is told at the very end of the parsha. Shapara Gazar, Loi Toisifun Laseis Tevin La'am Lilboin Halvenim. I'm not going to continue to give them the materials that they need to create the bricks and the mortar. Tichaved Havoid Al Anashim. I'm going to make the work heavier. I'm going to intensify the work upon the Jews. And in fact, we find that Moshe Rabbeinu himself came with a complaint before God, and he said, "May Oz basi al Parai, from when I came to Parai, because you told me to, you deputized me to come to Parai, but from that time, Heira la'am hazeh, it became worse for them." And when we understand this, we might be able to explain b'derech efshar, possibly, as hashaychus the hastalkus Rabbeinu Hazak in the Parsha Shmos, the connection between the histalkus of the Alter Rebbe and Parsha Shmos. Ka'amor le'il, as has already been said before, when the Rebbe begins the Sikha was citing the description of the histalkus written by the Tzemach Tzedek. Histalkusoi haisa be'ez himatzoi begolus. The Alter Rebbe passed in a state of exile. He was running for his life. Ukilashon Tzemach Tzedek, like the Tzemach Tzedek wrote, Kishabarchu mitzarfatim bahaya mitultol ad biyason lepiena. In the words of Tzemach Tzedek, it was when the Alter Rebbe was running from the French, and he was on the move. He was running, he was wandering, until they came to this hamlet, this little village called Piena. Kechol prate hatiltol bayisurim hamituarim bigeres me'admarim tzai. As per all the details of the Alter Rebbe's wandering and fleeing, and all of the travails and the difficulties that are included in that fleeing, that are described in the letter from the Tzemach Tzedek. Seif Gimel. Yiduim divrei Baal Ha'ilula. The words of the Baal Ha'ilula of the Alter Rebbe are known. Regarding the whole idea of when a tzaddik takes leave of this world, departs, she'az olim lamala, that when a tzaddik departs from this world, then there arise upward kol masav v'tayrasai v'avodasai asher avad kol yemei chayav. Everything that he accomplished, all of his Torah, all of his avodah, everything that he toiled in for all the days of his life. V'hadavar mizgalo umeir b'fchinas gilui milmaila lamata be'es p'tirasei. And all of this is revealed and irradiates in a revealed fashion, a light that comes from above to below. And all of this happens during the histalkos. And because we know that everything that happens is hashgacha pratis, and how much more so something that happened to a tzaddik and a leader of the generation. Move on, it's understood that this fact that the Alter Rebbe's histalkos was in Golus moira ala kesher v'hashaychus hapnimis bein masa v'teirase v'avedasa shel bala ilula lemala shebe'avoda b'zman Golus dafka. So the fact that the Alter Rebbe passed away in a state of Golus teaches us about the very deep connection between all of the accomplishments and the Torah and the toil of the Alter Rebbe, that all rise up and are revealed and irradiate in the time of his histalkos. It shows us a deep connection between the Alter Rebbe's life and work to the advantage of avodah that is done dafka in Golus. And because of this, because there is such a deep connection between the Alter Rebbe and the idea of avodah begolus, therefore it devolved from that spiritual reality that in the physical terrain, in the physical realm, he passed in a state of golus. So it's not that he passed in a state of golus, and now the Rebbe is looking to find an explanation. No, the Rebbe is saying the opposite. He passed in a state of golus because that is so essential to who the Alter Rebbe was. V'yesh leimar, we might say, shezeu gam tamadavar shechag ha'geula achron d'yutes kislev, shetzir Rabbeinu Zokin b'chayei chayusa ba'almadei. We might say that this is the reason for why the last Yutes Kislev that the Alter Rebbe marked in this world, haya b'mokim hagolu shabai nistalik, was also in a state of exile in the same geographic location as the place where he passed. Like the Tzemach Tzedek writes, Shabiyasim lepiena haisa erev Shabbos vayishlach v'zeh haya koydem Yutes Kislev. Tzemach Tzedek records that they came erev Shabbos kodesh vayishlach to this place, and it was right before Yutes Kislev. Why? The kevon sheyutes kislev Rosh Hashanah lechasidus hu anakuda hatichayne demasa b'terasa v'avodasa shel bal ha'ilula, because Yutes Kislev, the Rosh Hashanah to Chasidus, is the essential point of all of the work and all of the Torah and all of the spiritual service of the Bal Ha'ilula. It all comes to a crescendo on Yutes Kislev, or it's all on Exhibit A on Yutes Kislev, let's say. And since everything about him, Hakshur Lamalas Havodah B'Zman HaGolus Kanal, and because as already ascertained that the Alter Rebbe is connected to the advantage of avoid in the Zman HaGolus, Al Kain Gam Yutes Kislev Ha'achron B'Chayiv Dahainu Ha'ilui Hagadol B'Yoser Adayin D'Yoyim Na'al Hazeh B'Tkufas Chayiv Ba'almadei. Therefore, it came about that his last Yutes Kislev, meaning the greatest spiritual ascent in his lifetime in this world, because if Yutes Kislev is a day that showcases everything about the Alter Rebbe, and this is the last Yutes Kislev in this world, and Shaharei B'chol Shana V'Shana Yeredu Meir Or Chodesh Mechudash Shaloi Haya Meir Adayim Me'olam, and Chassidus teaches that every Yom Tov and every Yemei Depagra, in other words, every specific day, there's a specific day on the calendar, then there's a new light, there's an Or Chodesh. So every year there's a successively higher light on Yutes Kislev, and this was the last Yutes Kislev of the Alter Rebbe in this world. And where was it? Haya Begolus. It was in a state of exile. V'yisera mizu, and even more so, be'etzem mokem hagolus sheba ha'is talkusai. And where was he found? In the same location where he would pass. Why? Lifi sha'az eindim kol masa v'teirase v'avodase betachlis hashlemus kanal. Because in the time of passing, on the day of passing, that is when there is the most consummate exposure and revelation of all of the accomplishments, the deeds, the Torah, and the spiritual service of a person, in this case, the Alter Rebbe, Dalit. V'yuvon la'achar bir ha'inyan hanal. And so we'll understand after the explanation that the Rebbe gave us previous to this, if we understand Shetaychen Pasha Shemais Hu Golus V'Shibud Mitzrayim. Now we're in a better place, we're in a better position to understand the connection between the Alter Rebbe's passing, the Tzemach Tzedek underscores that it's Motzei Shabbos Kodesh Parsha Shemais, and the content of Parsha Shemais, which the Rebbe already taught us in Siv Beis, is all about Golus. Kvar Nizbar Kama V'Chama Pa'amim. Sheshma Shel Parsha Mabia Es Toichen Kol Parsha. So here the Rebbe is going to ask a series of questions, because the Rebbe teaches us constantly that the name of the Parsha encapsulates and expresses the content of the Parsha. And if this is so, and if we've determined that Shemais is all about Shibud, it's all about servitude, it's all about Golos, Eina Muvam Binyanenu, so that we don't understand here in our case how this all really comes together. Why? Nimtza she'inyan Shemais b'nei Yisrael habayim Mitzrayim mana es Shibud Mitzrayim. I'm sorry. Teichen Teves Shemais hu l'chayra hefach ha'inyan de Golos Mitzrayim umikam upon him. We don't understand how this all clicks, because the Rebbe explained to us that Shemais is all about Golos. And constantly the Rebbe tells us that the name of the Parsha encapsulates the whole Parsha and reflects the whole Parsha. So how do we understand this? Because the name Shemais seemingly is about the opposite of Golos. And it's about the opposite of Golos for a number of reasons, or in a number of ways. Aleph, Amru Chazal, Kanal. The Rebbe already cited this teaching from Ar Chachamim, that Kol Zman Shehaya Echad Mehem Kiyim Ma'asen Sheyardu LeMitzrayim Lo Yishibdu HaMitzim BeYisrael. That for as long as one of the people that came down to Mitzrayim from the original 70 souls that came down, as long as they were alive, there was no shibud, there was no servitude for the Jews. Nimtza. So from this we understand we understand that the energy of delineating the names of those that came down to Mitzrayim is an energy that prevents the shibud, prevents the servitude from beginning. So it seems to be contrary to what the Rebbe said about Shemais being all about Golos. Beis. Gam hadgasha hamiyuchedes de teva Shemais gufa. And the very idea that is underscored by the Eibishter listing their names again. Harehi kedivrei Rashi lahediach hibasan. We learned this yesterday. Rashi tells us that the Eibishter wants to tell us how much he loves Bnei Yisrael, which is hefach idin hagolos v'koshi yashibad Yisrael she'alav misupar parshazu. Again, that's the opposite energy of shibud, of golos, of exile, of servitude. In other words, it's completely extra, seemingly, for the names of these people to be listed once again, because we already know who they are. And Rashi explains that no, the Eibishter wants to show us how much he loves us. So he lists the name again. But again, so that's an overture of closeness, of manifest love. That's an embrace. That's a hug. And Parsha Shemais is supposed to be all about the bitterness of the Golus and the exile. And Shemais elu kamamer Chazal al Shem Geulas Yisrael Niskru Kan. And these names the Chachamim teach us are all about Geula, and that's why they were listed here. So the Rebbe is deepening his question, which is, We've said that Parsha Shemos is all about the servitude. It's the most intense expression thereof, and yet the Parsha is called Shemos, and Shemos seems to be all about Hashem's manifest love and embrace of us and the energy of Geula. How do we understand this juxtaposed against the Rebbe's teaching over and over again that the name of the Parsha encapsulates the whole Parsha? It carries the energy of the whole Parsha. Dalit. Ubir Inyan. And the explanation is as follows. Yadua shenikudas ha'iloi b'avoda zman hagolos hi she'az dafka mizgale koyach ha'mesiras nefesh shel Yisrael. It's well known that the essential elevation that is achieved through the spiritual toil in Golos is that it's dafka in Golos that Mesiras Nefesh, the power to engage in Mesiras Nefesh, emerges. And that power, Nimshach Mefchinas Yechida Shebenefesh. And Mesiras Nefesh comes from Yechida, from the highest level of the Neshama, from the Etzem HaNeshama, from the core, the Tamadavar. And why is this so? Lefisha hakayach the yechida shebenefesh etzem haneshama, because the power of the yechida, of the core, of the most transcendent aspect of the neshama, bal lidei bitui beikar b'makom u'b'matzav shaboy chaseir mahergesh v'ha'akara belukus mitzad hakoyches hagiluyim shel haneshama. Because when is the etzem haneshama? When is yechida activated? It comes to expression in the main, in a place and in a situation where the Jew lacks the feeling and the recognition of elokus, of godliness, on the part of the revealed aspects of the neshama. They're not really engaged cognitively. They're not engaged emotively. It's a really dark place. And that's when the Yechida asserts itself. Va'azai hahiskashrus belukus eina kol kach alidei hakoyches hagiluyim ela mitzad ha'etzem shel ish Yisrael. And in that situation, the connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not on the revealed level. It's not on the manifest level. It's only, and in the main, davka, through the etzem haneshama, through the core of what it means to be a Jew. V'lachein. And therefore, Bisman Beis Hamikdash Hayakayam Ve'elokus Ha'ira B'Gilui. So when the Beis Hamikdash stood and godliness was manifest, Harigam Avidasim Shel Yisrael Haisa Be'ikra Mitzad HaKoyches HaGiluyim. So then the avodah of Bnei Yisrael was also on this revealed level. Haisa Lehem HaKara Be'elokus Yisbarach. They had a recognition and you could say a verstand. They understood and they had a geschmack. They enjoyed elikus with their internal incorporated aspects, cognitively, emotively. And because that is a modality that comes through the cognition and comes through the emotions, so then that kind of obfuscates the transcendent aspect of Yechida, because you're feeling it on that aspect, on that more manifest, albeit lower level of Giluyim. The dafka bisman hagolos kasher or elakihu behelam behester, and it is specifically in exile when the godly light is in a state of shrouded. It's shrouded. It's obscured. It's a time where, as the Tehillim explains, da'isesenu lo'reinu, we don't see the signs. V'lo yitanu yodea adma, we don't have among us somebody that can see an end to this. We don't know what's going to happen. And there are all kinds of obfuscations and things that block and challenge us in Torah mitzvahs. Hine oz dafka. So it's specifically then be'es umipnei shened deras hashbas hakoyches hagiluyim shel haneshama. It's during that time, and because the manifest keches of the neshama are absent, dafka then mis'ayr hakayach the yechida shebenefesh. Then the yechida shebenefesh is aroused. Lizgaber alek shoyim v'hanisyonos bekim atar mitzaseh mitzad etzem haiskashru shal Yisrael HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's when the yechida is aroused to overcome the difficulties and the challenges that are mounted against the keeping of Torah and mitzvahs. And this happens because of the transcendent and the core connection of Bnei Yisrael to Hashem. V'zeh haya inin golus Mitzrayim v'golus bechlal, asher dafke al yidei zeh bo lidei bitur ha'iskashrus ha'atzmis shel Yisrael la'Kadosh Baruch Hu. And that is the whole concept of Golus Mitzrayim, and that is the whole concept of exile in general, that it is specifically in Golus that there comes to full expression the most profound and core connection between a Jew and Hashem. And this was the preparation to receive the Torah. Because what's the whole point of Matan Torah? It's to bring Elokus, it's to bring godliness into the Tachtonim, into the lowest realm, into the physical, the material. That through Torah and mitzvahs, the lowest plane should become a domicile, should become a dwelling place for Hashem. Because it's only through the avodah of dir b'tachtonim that the deepest and most essential aspect of the Torah comes to full expression. Se'ivav, habir hanal b'mailas ha'avodah b'zman ha'golos. So the above mentioned explanation about the advantage of the avodah that is done in the zman ha'golos, that the yechida shebenefesh is activated, that the etzem haneshama is activated. Sha'af sha'or leki eina meir b'giloi hine dafka oz misgala etzem haneshama. That even though on a manifest level the godly light is not irradiating, it's obscured, but it's dafka then that the etzem haneshama is revealed. And all of this merumas be'inyan de Shemos. And this concept is alluded to in the concept of names. B'shaychus Hashem la'adam hanoises Hashem. When we talk about the connection between a person and the name that they carry, matzinu beis ktavos, we find paradoxical elements. We find two opposing features. Mitzad echad roim anu shabala Hashem k'shala'atzmai einu zakuk l'shem klal. On one hand, the person themselves doesn't need a name. I don't need a name to know who I am. Ein Hashem mishamesh loy ela ke'emtza kedei shehazulas yuchal likra loy. The only way in which your name services you is that it provides agency to somebody else to be able to call on you. So they have to know how to get your attention. V'hainu she'Hashem hu l'chayr rak davar chitzoni be'erech el ha'adam. So this would seem to underscore that a name is a very external aspect of the person. Umitam zeh, lo nitan lekabel min Hashem kol musag al mahus ha'adam hanigra b'shem zeh. And for this reason, you don't really get to know anything about the person by knowing their name. It's just a name on a piece of paper. V'haraya, and what is proof of this? Yeshnam anashim rabim sheim bali oisei Hashem. There could be hundreds and thousands of people that carry the same name. And this demographic, let's say they all carry the name Chana, but they could be variated, and the Rebbe says, and they could even be opposite each other from one extent, from one extreme to the other. Because the name does not reflect the essence of the person who carries the name. It's not like using the metaphor of light, because with light reflects the source, the luminary, and through the light, you're able to grasp that there is a luminary and you're able to understand something about the luminary. A name of a person is not like that, because from the name itself, you can't really learn anything about the person. Aval me'idach gisa, that's all on one hand. But on the other hand, Yedua shalashema adam yeshayches le'etzem adam. We know that a name has a connection to the very core of a person. And it's a connection that transcends the manifest aspects of the person. And what's the proof? When you call a person by their name, the person turns around and reacts to the name with all of them, with all of themselves, with v'yaser mizu and more. Kasher adam misalef rachman al-islan, when a person faints, God forbid, upirish hadavar shechayus hanefesh he b'matzav shel his almos v'hi muvdelas migiloi begof. And when a person loses consciousness, this means that their vivifying factor has somehow been obscured or is separated from their body. Haderech lahakitza me'alfoinoi. So how do you wake a person from their faint? He al yidei kriya b'shmoi, to call them by their name. Varei zuraya she'inin Hashem kosher v'nagea be'etzem chayis hanefesh v'lachen yesh b'koiche lahamshich es hachayis b'chazara b'koiches haguf. This teaches us, this is a proof that the name is connected and is very relevant to the essence of the person, and therefore calling their name has the power to draw forth their chayus, their life force, to bring it back into their body. And in this way, there is something that there's an advantage to the name in contradistinction to light. Before, the Rebbe said that a name is not like light, because by the name, you can't know anything about the source you can't know anything about the person. Whereas from light, you can know something about the source, the luminary. But the Rebbe says, but in this respect, going back to that metaphor, a name has something over light. That even though through light you can grasp the luminary, you can identify the luminary, but still in oral you cannot pull on the essence of the luminary through a ray of light. But you could pull on the essence of the person through their name. V'hainu, this means she'etzem ha'adam bo lidei bitrui dafke b'makam sheboi ein nikere shaychus giluya la'adam. Mamish merdike idea here that the essence of the person comes to expression dafka where you don't recognize, and it's not manifest, and it's not showcased any of the revealed aspects of the person. And this is in consonance with what the Rebbe explained above, that the advantage of the avodah that we do in Golos is that in that darkness and in that obfuscation and in that confusion, that's where the essence of the person is revealed. Zayin. Al pikol hanal. So based on all of the above, muvan hakesher b'masa v'terase b'vedase shabal ha'ilul parsha shmais. We can understand the connection between the Alter Rebbe's deeds and his Torah and his work to parsha shmais in Golos, which is all about Golos. Yodua, it's known shekashem sheyeshna b'china yechida b'nefesh adam, that just like there is the idea of the yechida in a person's soul, kach yeshna b'china yechida b'Torah, so there is yechida in Torah. And what's the yechida of Torah? Torah is chasidus. The ikar hagilui de bechinas yechida de Torah b'chasidus Chabad, and the main revelation of the yechida of Torah, which is chasidus, is dafka and chasidus Chabad. He tears hachasidus kefi shabal ha'ilula gila isa v'himshicha b'havana v'hasaga. It's dafka in the Torah of the Alter Rebbe, who created a system and drew down all of these transcendent and lofty ideas, that they should be able to be accessed with our cognitive vessels, with our minds. Al minash al yidei zeh yuchal adam lifoil gam al nafshei habahamis v'chelke ba'olam. And the Alter Rebbe did this in such a way that through this learning that we learn with our minds, we should be able to affect our nefesh habahamis and all the aspects of the physical world that belong to us, until we're able to transform from one extreme to the other our nefesh habahamis and the physical matter that is given to us, because, as said above, it's specifically in the physical. It's specifically with the nefesh habahamis. It's specifically with our chelek sheba'olam that is expressed the core of pnimius hatayra. Kilomar, that is to say, kashem shenizbar le'il b'negei la'adam, just like we explained above, just like the Rebbe taught us above, relative to a person, she's galus hayechida etzem haneshama he davka kasher krechesa v'hagiluyim he b'matzav shel helam v'hester, that it is davka when the more overt, manifest aspects of the person are clouded or completely covered and hidden. That is when the etzem haneshama manifests. Kain hu gam b'negei liyechida b'teira. Shehi mizgalas davka kasher aleho lifo b'madregas hatachtene shel adam. It's the same thing with the yechida of Torah, which is Chasidus Chabad. That when are you megala? When do you reveal the greatness? Not when to reveal the greatness. When do we see the greatness of this Chasidus? It's in its ability to affect the lowest aspects of the person and the world. B'nafshei habahamis, b'chelkei ba'olam. It's able to affect the nefesh habahamis. It's able to affect the physical material matter. Ukepiska bala hilula, and as the Alter Rebbe taught us, kol inyan hachasidus l'shanais tiviyos midaisav. The whole inyan of Chasidus is to change our characteristics, is to change our habits, is to change our predispositions. V'zuhi hanakuda hamishutefet bein masa v'tayrasi v'vedasa shabala hilul l'mayla havoida b'zman hagolus. And this is the common denominator between all of the Alter Rebbe's Torah and all of his work and avoida in zman hagolus. B'shneihem nifeles ha'izgalus d'bchinas yechida dafke b'mokaim hamushlal megilui or. Both in the Alter Rebbe's work and in the avodas managolos, in both of these are effectuated the revelation of the yechida, specifically in the place that is empty of or devoid of manifest light. Yes, Yadua, it's known, Shadargase Bavadasa Shabala Hilul Miramezes Bishmai, that the great level and the great work of the Bala Hilula is alluded to in his name, Shnei Or Zalmin, Shnei Or Miloshan, Shnei Or, two lights, two celestial lights, Vizalmin, who are Asias Lizman. Same, Zalman is the same letters of Lizman. And these names, again, showcase and express the connection and the fusion and the merging of Shnei Or, two big lights, and the Inyan of Zman. The explanation is as follows. Shnei Or, Perushai, Kemaimer HaBaal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov foretold about the Alter Rebbe that he would be Oidus Rabbeinu Zaken, Sheyayiris Ha'olam B'Veiz Iris, that his neshama would irradiate the world with two types of light, Or Teres HaNigla, V'Or Teres HaNistar, the light of the revealed Torah of Nigla, and the light of the hidden of Chasidus. V'Hachidush Shnei Or B'Teva Achasu, and the novelty of one word, one name, Shnei Or, encapsulating two different lights, She'etzel Rabbeinu Zaken Haya Hachibor de Nigla V'Nistar B'Shleimus, is the complete merging of Nigla and Nistar in Torah, until they become one thing, two sides of the same coin. You can't separate them. And the possibility for this merger to occur was only because the Alter Rebbe revealed the essence of Torah, the Yechida Shebetera, Shehi Lamaila Mikol Agdorim Dehelam Begilui, because the essence is higher than any putting it into different categories of what is hidden and what is revealed. Because when you reach into that transcendent level of Yechida, you're in a place that is higher than these different distinctions, and therefore you're pulling on a kayach that can bring them, that can fuse together these two lights. And this greatness, himshich lizman. The Alter Rebbe brought it down in Zman. And what is Zman? Hashayach l'olam. Time is a construct that belongs to the physical world. And olam miloshen helam. And the whole world olam comes from the word helam, which means to hide, to obscure, to obfuscate, to shroud. Dahainu meaning shagam ba'olam atachtin ya'ir shnei or. His name was not just Shnei Or, it was Shnei Or Zalman, because the whole thing was that these two great lights should come down into this lower world, Hachibor de Beis Ha'eres, to bring together these two lights. And through this, Dafka comes this fusion of the two through the agency of revealing the Yechida Shebetera, as we've explained above, and as explained above, that when can the Yechida manifest? It's dafka in the lowest places, in the hardest places, in the darkest places where there's no Giluyim. And that's where we get the inyan of Yechida. Tes. Kefishan is bar kama pa'amim. As explained a number of times, Tachlis hakavana the whole point is, you could say, Shagam and Yonim Shalamayla Mishtalshalos Ulamayla Mikoiches Adam, that it's the things that are beyond the chain of devolution, beyond the system that the Eibishter created to create this world, and they're higher than the abilities of a person. The whole point is that these transcendent levels, yavayu bigilui ubepnimius gam b'koiches ha'adam, they should come down and they should manifest in an incorporated way in the abilities of a person. The leirak ba'ivin shel helam kibizman agolos, and it should not just be in an obfuscated way like it is in the time of Golos. In other words, there should be the fusion of the transcendent and the immanent in a way that is recognizable, that we can see. Because although we've spoken above about the advantage of the avodah in the time of Golos, because it's dafke in Golos that then is aroused and then is revealed the Yechida Shebenefesh. But the Rebbe says, but enough already with this. Harei tachlis hagolos hi hageula shebal achareha. But the whole point of going down in Mitzrayim was to get the Torah. The whole point of Golus is the Geula. Hainu meaning shagilui bechinas hayechida desmana Golus yoyer gam bekoiches apnimim shel adam shaf heim yiyu chadurim beetzem hanefesh. Meaning that what we really want to get to is that the yechida that is manifest during the time of Golus, we want to get to a point where that manifestation should illumine our abilities, and that our abilities should be saturated and suffused with atzmos, with the etzem and nefesh, the yechida, not in a time of Golus. V'yesh loimer b'derech efshar, we might say, shezehu hachidush bal ha'ilula b'teres chasidus Chabad, that this is the novelty of the Alter Rebbe in his Torah Chasidus Chabad. She'etzem pnimis haTorah shehi l'mayla meishtalshalos or l'mayla mitzam vadas, that the pnimis haTorah, which really is higher than Ishtalshalos. It's higher than any system, and it's higher than logic and intelligence. And seemingly, it should be impossible for a person to accept to come into this Torah except through accepting it and through faith. In other words, it should be impossible for us to actually understand Chassidus. But the Alter Rebbe's Chiddush was, Af hi tumshach benigla ubahasaga bechabad shebenefesh ha'adam. But the Alter Rebbe's novelty was that he took these ideas that are so transcendent and are higher than Ishtalshalos, and he brought them down in a way that they can be grasped in the Chachma, Bina, and Das of a person, and through grasping it with his Chabad, it should affect the Midas, Sheyis'er ba'ava v'yira, that we should be aroused in loving Hashem and being in awe of Hashem in the right way. And this is alluded to in the fact that his Estalkos was a Matzah Shabbos Kodesh on the eve of the first day of Parshas Ve'era. Aval Ve'era le'niskar begilui, but the name Ve'era is not mentioned by the Tzemach Tzedek in a revealed way. Because what's Ve'era? Asher oz kvar hischil hadibur b'negei legilui v'ani havaya b'chinas atzmus ein seif. Because Va'era is already the idea of Hashem appearing and manifesting and revealing in the Shem Havaya. And this is a modality of Ein Sof that is a transcendent modality. Asher ad oz loy ba l'dei gilui. Until that moment, it wasn't revealed. Like Rashi says, loy nikarti lehem b'midas hamiti shali. I did not allow myself to be known to them with this most essential aspect of myself. The Teves va'era atzmahi hare miloshen re'iyah. And the very word va'era itself is etymologically linked with the word to see, the gilui, and to reveal. Hainu meaning shabachina v'hamadrega shalamayla mishtalshalos yarda l'dei re'iyah v'gilui ba'ofen pnimi. The same idea of taking the transcendent and bringing it down from higher than Ishtalshalos into a level that can be seen and revealed in a way that is incorporated in the person that is Begolui. Please forgive me. I must run. Wishing everybody a good week and Kol Tov Selah.